everyone, and welcome to another episode of Taking Up Space, a Michele podcast. Super excited about coming forward as always. I'm always excited to come forward with just conversations because that's what we're doing. I'm just having a conversation with you as if we were sitting at a table about to share food or break bread together. Today's conversation, though, is going to be surrounding a couple of different topics, okay? I want to talk about reasons versus excuses. I want to speak to women again. I see this a lot on social media, people speaking about women, especially about head count, like how many partners a woman has had sexually, and in regards to her worthiness as a woman in establishing a relationship with a man. I want to speak also to just the state of affairs amongst the children in general, okay? In a worldview, just a very broad perception, because I see a lot going on both nationally and internationally amongst the children. And when I speak to the children, I do speak to the world populace in general, okay? Because really, y'all, the bloodlines have been so contaminated. This was the reason why God told Moses, told Joshua, told David, told Solomon, all these things in regards to don't mingle with a lot of these people. You got to understand, because in order to keep that particular Hebraic bloodline pure, not for racial superiority. This has nothing to do with racial superiority. And anyone that puts a spin on it, I think, is coming from an adversarial perspective. The reason God asked the children not to mingle with other nations was so that they could be distinguished free and clear as the children of Israel, as the Hebrews. There wouldn't be any discrepancy. There wouldn't be any way to deny that fundamental truth. But just like Solomon and many of the other leaders and other children, they began mingling with these other nations. Yes, they built altars and they bowed to their gods, because when you begin to mingle, you begin to have your barriers kind of lowered. Your defenses are lowered. You're getting with this other nationality's woman, and now before you know it, you're coming over to her house, because that's how it goes. You're at her house and you're amongst her people and you're befriending her people, which is nothing wrong with it. But you're denying your house for the sake of her house, and before you know it, you're adapting to the ways of her house. And this is what had happened amongst the children, and this is what displeased God, okay? I don't want to turn this into a Bible study, because this is my third video, and the second one I turned it into a low-key Bible study, so don't want to do that. But I do want to speak to the problems amongst the children, and they have to do with their occupancy in the world amongst all of these different nations. You got to remember, when God led these people from Egypt all the way through to the promised land, these children are being observed by all of the world. Nobody did what these children did. There was no other nation doing the same thing. This thing that they did was heretical. To go from the worship of multi-gods, which was the standard quo amongst the planet, now to the worship of one singular God, was heretical. For these children to be led out of Egypt on an exodus by Moses into the wilderness on a promise. These children banked on a promise They had nothing tangible. They walked on faith. They walked on a hope. They walked away from what they knew on a hope off of faith in Moses, most importantly, because Moses was the acting ambassador of God. And surely God did signs and wonders so that these children could buy in, but they really were buying into Moses as the ambassador of God. And for Moses to be able to speak their concerns directly to God and for their concerns to be heard. So they banked on Moses. Because if Moses wasn't a righteous individual, these children would not have left all that they knew in Egypt. They were there at the safety of Joseph, because what Joseph did all those many decades before, that lasted throughout the 400 years that these children were in Egypt. And that is the status quo that the God of Israel has within all of the generations. When these children are in alignment, truly no weapon formed against them can prosper. You have seen it from Egypt. You have seen it throughout all of their walks in the wilderness. They left the safety of Egypt, even though, listen to me, I don't want to turn this into a Bible study, but I got to get this. These children were in Egypt for 400 years. These children were in Egypt for 400 years. They were there because of what Joseph had set up for them. Their forefathers, their ancestors. That's basically what Joseph was. Joseph, their ancestor, set up a system for them to be stable for 400 years. The only way an individual in a human body could do such a thing is if God blesses it. Many of us can't set up a system for us nor anyone else to benefit within the lifetime consistently. Yet God, through Joseph, set up a system for these children to be safe enough to flourish, to out-flourish the Egyptians. They out-flourished the Egyptians in head count, and they were neck to neck economically. They were separate but equal, as I said in my Bible study on Joseph. So the children of Egypt became very jealous and envious of the children of Israel, because by right it is their land. They can trace back the genesis of these children in their land. They can trace back from whence they came. They know the history. They know Joseph is the one that allowed all of this to happen. They also know Joseph is the one that their forefathers sold all of their property to during the time of the famine and after, which led them to be in the situation that they're in at the time that they became very angry with the children of Israel. So they were very resentful. They felt as if they had been robbed, as if the children's forefathers had came in and taken all that they owned and made it the children's. So they made it very difficult for the children. Nonetheless, the children had enough favor for them to give them their jewelry, their gold, and all of their precious metals on a loan system. And then for the children to leave with it. They left with what Egypt held of value. That could be symbolic. They left with the value of Egypt. They left richer than the Egyptians, as it was in the beginning. The Egyptians gave in the end all that was valuable to the children, as they did in the beginning when Joseph came into Egypt. They gave all their land, all of the value to the children. But this is the covering of God. This is how God's covering works for the children. And it has been this way time and time again. So much so that throughout the children's travels, they've made miraculous triumphs throughout all of their walks to the promised land. Anyone that did not agree with them either had to bow down and agree, or they had to wage war, or they had to just be quiet. It wasn't as if they could convert over to become a child of Israel. The Egyptians couldn't, and none of their brethren along the way that were not of Hebraic descent could. None of them could. It's not like they could convert. You don't get the conversion until the New Testament. This is what made it so hostile. It's because these children were blessed and nobody could stop it. Nobody could do anything. The only way that they could stop them from being blessed is if they were able to corrupt them internally. It wasn't even like they could come in and partake of the blessing. You see that with Jethro and Moses. Surely he could help Moses and uplift Moses, and he will be blessed for his help. But he could not fall up under that umbrella of the house of Israel. He could not fall up under the umbrella of a Hebrew. So all these people must stand on the sidelines and be in awe of how God is moving through these children. And they learned so much because they were mesmerized by these children that they learned the flaws of these children as well, because God allowed it. Nonetheless, I don't want to get caught up in that. The reason why I brought that up is because from that point up until now, 2024, all of the opponents to these children are still pervasive in the world. It's not as if they've diminished and gone anywhere. They're still pervasive, and there are still in the world. They're still the opponents of the children. Yet the children are constantly, it's gotten so much so that the children sabotage one another. The enemy, the opponent, doesn't even have to come upon the children anymore. The opponent is one of the children. Kind of like Gideon when he was threshing the wheat in the winepress. It was the same situation. The opponent was one of the children. He had to hide. He wasn't hiding from the other nations. Gideon was in the winepress threshing wheat. He was hiding from his own brethren. He couldn't even show in his own community that he was taking care of his family. He was hiding that he was getting money. He was hiding that he had some form of profit, food from his own brethren. It is the same way now. It is the exact same way now. Many of us, no matter how high you go in the echelon of this system, suffer from the same thing. It's just tiers to it. Low income, mid income, high income, higher income, but it's all the same thing for the children. And it's gotten to the point in biblical times, it had gotten to the point where the children had felt so confined and so trapped that they just conformed to the system of things. Because they felt that the system was so much bigger than them, that it was just easier to conform to it than to work your way trying to challenge it. Because when you look at all of the ones that had come before them, all of the mighty ones of their ancestry, no one was able to get it right. None of them. None of their former ancestors, none of them were able to get it right. And if they were, it was not lasting. Look at Hezekiah. They had done a miraculous thing. They had rebuilt the temple of Jerusalem. They had found the law of Moses. There was a resurrection of the alignment of the children. Everybody was proactive. And it fell into the hands of the Babylonians. I don't know why I brought that up today. I didn't really know where it was going. It was on my spirit. I don't have an answer for that as of yet, as to give you, a solution to it. But it's really something that we should ponder. As people in the world, we should ponder the history of, from whence we have come, and all those great people that have come before us have come. Because it's really relevant and it matters. It matters what has been and how we interpret what has been, because we can learn a lot from what has been if we just took the time to see it. Wanted to speak also, I really don't want to, I have so much more that I want to say, but I don't really know how I want to say it. And I'm in a weird place because I don't want to say something and then I offend somebody in a way, and they think I purposely offended them. It's the same stuff that the children went through. All of this stuff is the same stuff. All of it. Yet, God gets the glory, friend. If you think, and I think this is where God is sending me with this, I know this. If you think that there is no method to this madness, you are crazy. All of our ancestors knew that there would be a time as this. They knew that there would be a time that we will fall into the ignorance of just who we are, as we have. They knew that there would be a time that we will fall into the darkness of ourselves. Not the darkness in the form of saying, it's ugly and it's this and it's that, because we've used also that to turn the perception of things. The darkness is the creation point. Without the darkness, there could be no light. The light is the end result of what is birthed in the darkness. The darkness is the beginning of all things. It is in the darkness of your mind that you create the thoughts that inspire you to move forward, to create with the hand and to birth into the world of light. The darkness is the most important aspect of all of this. So I do not want to come on here and portray the darkness as if it's some ugly, demonic, catastrophe of a thing. The darkness is highly valuable. It's immeasurable and it is invaluable. You cannot put a price as to how valuable it is, because it is from the darkness that everything springs forth from. Everything. There is nothing that is left out of that. So I want to be mindful of the things that I say, because I hear a lot of that also. Oh, it was dark and it was this and it was that. And the darkness is really the soil of which everything springs forth from. But as I was saying, God gets the glory in regards to all that happens. We think that, oh my goodness, this is such a catastrophe. How could there be anything good from this? I gotta fix this for God. I have to get in here and I need to invoke the Spirit of God to help me fix this. And all the while, you're not even knowing your role in the big scheme of things. God put you in that place to play your position. God put all of those people that you see as opponents in their places to play their positions. God is the God that gives you the thoughts. Surely the Satans and all of the other spirits of the garden, they give you thoughts as well, but they are bound to the laws and the rules and the judgment of God. How many times have we heard in the Bible where Satan was amongst God and he walked and he also asked God to threaten, not to threaten, but to challenge God's beloved. Or God himself said, challenge him or her. Or him, sorry, no hers. Because there's no hers written in the Bible, really. And that's another conversation. So God is a God that will challenge you. That's fair to say. It's fair to say that God is a God that will challenge you to see really and truly what you're working with. As if God doesn't know. God can search you and know your thoughts. But friend, I'm here to tell you that even if God searches you and knows your thoughts, you can be put in a situation where the enemy will hit you with a thought that is completely counter to what you know of yourself. And you could be in a detrimental situation when the enemy comes with that thought. And it could be an easy way to solve it. It's always the easy way. But it's usually out of alignment with really who you are. And if you fall for it and you say, okay, yeah, I'm going to go for that. And you stand in that and you get out of that situation, but now you're wearing the weight and the jacket of what that decision got you. It's as if it was better for you to just gone ahead and stood in the integrity of who you are and seen where that would get you. Because you see the distinct contrast from the covering of God and not having the covering of God. Kind of like Adam and Eve. It's immediate. And these are the tests. When God hardened Pharaoh's heart, Pharaoh thought it was his will that was hardening his heart. Pharaoh thought it was his pride and his ego that was doing it. He felt like it was the right thing to do, not knowing that he was totally out of alignment. Had he softened his heart, the whole bloodline of Egypt probably would have gotten blessed. We've seen this thing happen so many times in Scripture. Just most recently in, I forgot, was it Jeremiah? Hosea. I can't remember. That wasn't Hosea. Jonah. It was Jonah. When Jonah came upon the people and they immediately changed. There was no need for war. There was no need for retribution. I don't want to get too lost into that. And I'm just really want to sum it up with and using the Bible as justification in the sense to say, everybody is necessary. Everybody. When God moves in your life, I have seen this happen so often, you guys, where when God moves in my life, God doesn't just move for me. God moves for everybody that's involved. That's how God gets glory. It's not just for one person. It's everybody that's involved. When we look at these children and their travels and all the interactions throughout their walk, all of these sideline players, they always play a part later in the book. It is a telling of all the players involved. It's not just one person. It is not. That's how God moves. Yet God always gets the glory. In the end, God always gets the glory. One thing you can quote me, and you must remember I have said, is that every single knee will bow. Every single knee will bow. They're going to all kiss the ring. That's just how it is. Because at the end of the day, This is God's creation. This is not God and Satan's creation, and they up in here warring against one another for who's going to have ownership of this creation. This is God's creation. And you got positives and you got negatives. And in the work of this life, there is a battle between the positives and the negatives. That is the chaos part. That's from every aspect of this life, from the sperm leaving, and there's chaos amongst all of them as to who's going to impregnate the egg. Of all the living beings on this planet, it is a war from the gate. It's competitive from the gate. It is. I didn't create it. That is the way this thing is set up. Yet the things that are fixed, the things that are fixated, the sun shining, the moon shining, the stars moving in their processions, the winds, the elements, once the chaos, once that element has been fixed, meaning like when a child is conceived, once the conception point happens, there's rest. The chaotic period is no longer. But the beginning of everything was chaos. The beginning of this world was chaos. The solar systems was the Big Bang theory, all of it is based out of a chaos type of theory. But that chaos does not last throughout the entire process. It's just the beginning portion of it. And this is the part that makes it so fair. That's why it's chaotic. It's the movement of different things vying for the same prize. Nonetheless, you guys, I don't know where this is going, but I wanted to speak to that being important, knowing that God always gets the glory. God always gets the glory. And God will work through the strangest vessels. God doesn't choose the perfect people. So I think we should stop looking for perfection. God works through regular people, friend. I think, as I said in the beginning, everything I've said, you can go back to the beginning of all of my videos. They're all the same. I don't change up because what I'm saying is my truth. And I've fostered this truth, and I've kneaded it, and I've molded it, and I've re-wetted it and broken it down again and kneaded it and molded it again, and it wasn't to my liking, and I did it over and over again. I know this truth so much that I can come forward and offer it up to you in integrity and in honesty. Yet I don't have to be perfect to offer it up to you. And if you are looking for perfection, you need to go somewhere else. Sorry, but I need to tell you that right now. I am not perfect. And I don't ever want to be. I am not looking to be perfect. I'm looking to be righteous as I possibly can. And I'm looking to stay as in close alignment to God as I possibly can. When you look at what the Pharisees and the Sadducees did to the law of Moses and the word of God, and how they created all these sub-laws up under the law of Moses because they felt that it was too ambiguous. It was too flexible. That was problem number one. God's law is not as, all these sub-laws that we live by. Those are people's laws, friend. When I say something, it's not my job to come on and be like, okay, yep, I got this source from this book, this author. I got this source from that author. It's not my job to be in like a little box at the bottom of the screen and have my computer screen shared with you while I Google stuff either. Everything that I've said, you could Google for yourself. You can go on a treasure hunt yourself to find. Why would you expect me to come here and deliver unto you all of this information with clip notes and all kind of stuff for you to just take upon your leisure to investigate, why would I do that? This is where the hunger comes in. I myself have not ever done that. I never went to people's pages in my younger years or even now, and I'm looking for them to give me everything. I'll find it myself. That's the only way you're going to know you're hearing the truth. You've got to go on your own independent journey on your own. And you can't just lean on the Bible. You can't. Everything you're going to need to know about the God of Israel is not always hidden within the pages of the Bible, friend. There are many biblical texts that are not in the Bible. That's just one book of them, but there are other books. Nonetheless, want to speak also lastly to, I don't even think I want to get on that. I think I'm going to end this conversation with just that. You love more than you'll ever know. I'll never stop telling you. Just wanted to come on and share that with you today. Hope you're having a blessed day. Be good to yourselves and be good to each other. Peace and love.